When the relationship feels like emotional intimacy is growing, that is when the avoidant is likely to pull away. It could be a moment where they got vulnerable with you, where they told you things that they said that they've never told anybody else. Or maybe you just had a wonderful holiday together. You met each other's family maybe. You just had the trip of a lifetime. Things felt close, like they were going wonderfully. Maybe you had just the most wonderful weekend together. And all of a sudden, the very next day, this person is cold and distant. Maybe they disappear altogether or disappear for days. And their communication with you becomes very different. It's like it's a different person. It almost becomes robotic, like they're talking to a client or a coworker. The intimacy, the familiarity is like suddenly gone. The person has changed on a dime. And this is precisely because of the emotional intimacy that was building. This is because the two of you were growing closer. This is because they were starting to feel vulnerable with you. This is because the relationship was in fact going well. Healthy relationship behaviors are exactly what trigger avoidance. Emotional intimacy is what triggers them. When an avoidant gets triggered, well, they do something called deactivation. This is when they take their emotions, they take their feelings for their partner, and they bury them. They put them in a lockbox and they throw away the key, at least for a while. They don't allow themselves to access their feelings for their partner. It's like they put a brick wall up inside of themselves and their feelings are on the other side of the wall. This person is running from their feelings. They are not processing emotions. They're running from them. That's what they've learned to do. Not to process emotions, and definitely not to reflect on their emotions, their fears, or their feelings. They avoid. That's why they're called avoidants. They avoid emotional intimacy. This is because the avoidant has learned that emotional intimacy leads to heartache. It leads to abandonment. This is what they learned from childhood when they were emotionally neglected by their caretakers. The end result is somebody who runs when a relationship is going well because it makes them feel uncomfortable. It makes them feel uncomfortable because in the avoidant's mind, abandonment is imminent. But because they don't self-reflect on their feelings or their behaviors, they are unable to articulate why they actually have these fears. So if you press for answers, they'll tell you something very vague. I can't give you what you need. I'm just so busy at work. I need time and space to heal, etc., etc. This is because they don't want to actually reflect on what's going on inside of themselves. They'll even gaslight themselves and tell themselves, well, it must be because they're with the wrong person, because the right person wouldn't trigger these fears. The reality is, a healthy partner, or at least an emotionally available partner, is going to trigger those fears every time, no matter who the partner is. It is an emotionally unavailable partner that would not trigger these fears because there's no threat of emotional intimacy. It all comes down to the emotional intimacy. So the better a relationship is going, the higher the likelihood that the avoidant is going to pull away and discard the partner out of nowhere, drop you like a rock, give you no explanation, and show you no empathy. Again, this is because they've deactivated. They're not even allowing themselves to access empathy. It's how they protect themselves. It's maladaptive. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help their partner, it doesn't help anybody. But it's how they think that they're actually protecting themselves. But what they're doing is they're actually perpetuating their own loneliness, hurting themselves, hurting their own self-esteem, and hurting their partner. But, however, in that moment, the only thing the avoidant is considering is themselves and their immediate fears, feelings, and that's what they're catering to. They're just not considering their partner. They're not considering the partner at all. So, if things were going wonderfully, and you just had a wonderful time together, regardless of what it was, or you felt like this person was really opening up to you, and the relationship was really growing a strong bond, and then suddenly the next day, they sever that bond, they do deactivation behaviors, they get cold and distant on you, it's precisely because it was going well. It's not because you did anything wrong. Listen, it is really not because you did anything wrong. It's because you did everything right. You treated this person with love, kindness, emotional availability, compassion, empathy, and that's precisely what scared them. Because a person with low self-esteem that feels unlovable doesn't know how to receive love, especially when they don't know how to process emotions and they don't allow themselves to. Because keep in mind, this behavior still is a choice. They could choose to confront these feelings, they could choose to self-reflect, but they choose not to. It's because they feel like that's how they're keeping themselves safe. It's not a reflection of you. It never is.